guys, it's Lizzie. So this is a video I've been wanting to make since last summer, and I think I waited so long just because I didn't want to make the problem worse. I have a lot of strong opinions and I wanted to make sure I could present everything in a calm way that kind of did justice to both sides and made everyone feel understood. Recently though, and the reason I'm making this right now, is a YouTuber I watch, TANA MONGEAU, made a video about someone at her meet and greet.
And so the guy looks at me and he wraps his arm around me and he looks in the camera and he goes, "Say," and it puts his thumbs up and then like blank and he says the N-word, like hard R, N-word, like say N-word. I don't know what to do, you know? I'm just terrified, I'm flabbergasted, I'm freaking out. I don't want you to wake up every day and be afraid to leave your house because of the way people may treat you or hurt you, or police or people, regardless of your skin color or even your sexuality or your gender or whatever it may be. We're all equal and we all need to use our voices to spread that.
She asked at the end of the video for people to respond to it, how we should react in situations like this. She talked some about systemic racism in the video, and I want to talk about that more. I also want to connect this to the Black Lives Matter movement that was really big last summer, and also the reaction to that, where a lot of people were saying all lives matter, we shouldn't be focusing on just Black lives. This video, I'm specifically talking about Blacks in America. I can make another video talking about Native Americans, Hispanics, or other people. I just today am going to focus the video topic on African Americans. So Tana was crying in the video, and I also have cried about issues like this. I'm someone who's extremely emotionally sensitive, and Tana also has bipolar disorder. Part of bipolar is being extremely empathetic, feeling the world so strongly. So a lot of people, probably most white people, are not going to have a reaction where they're going to be crying thinking about racism, thinking about our past history of racism. I don't think you are wrong if you don't feel that. I think that the way to solve these problems does not have to involve guilt or crying. I think it's all about just valuing equality and fighting for equality. When I was 13, I remember a conversation I had in the car with my dad, and I was saying, yeah, I don't think racism exists anymore. I don't think there's any inequality. When I have friends at school who are Black, we're friends. Like, we don't treat each other different. And the only reason, like the main reason I started believing in systemic racism is because I was on the debate team in my high school, and I have the research in my bedroom still, researching about our criminal justice system, drug laws, the amount of funding going into schools. I researched all these issues in depth, and over the course of 4 years in high school of researching, I noticed these inequalities. And so when there's one police shooting, it's a lot less about that one police shooting, although it is really, really awful, but it's connected to this huge web of inequality in our country. So one of my best friends is Black, and I was talking about him in a video I made last week. I was telling a story of how we were trespassing once and the police came, but we were like hiding, and then the cop left. But it was like a fun story. But I was talking about in it how he was really, really scared, how I was really scared for him because of all the police shootings that had happened. He especially though was really, really scared. And this is just one person. I'm just gonna share several stories he's told me about his experience in America as an African American. So a year ago, his cousin was shot by an off-duty police officer. So he was driving home and his car broke down, and so a white cop not wearing a uniform shot and killed him. My friend went to the same high school as Trayvon Martin. A lot of you have probably heard the story. He was just walking through a neighborhood in a hoodie and he was shot by the neighborhood watch guy. With the Trayvon Martin case, I remember exactly where I was when I heard about the gun that killed him being auctioned off. I don't want any of this to be real. He was driving back to his house after his work shift, parking in his driveway, and a cop drives up and knocks on his window and asks him what he's doing, And he's like, yeah, I live here. And then the cop is like, weren't you just like with those kids at the playground? And he says, no, I just drove here. And the cop keeps asking him more questions, almost like trying to get a reaction out of him. The term for that is stop and frisk, where they can randomly stop people without a reason because of the color of their skin, because of their ethnicity. So my friend and I were at a Christian retreat thing last year in the fall, and I was in the car with him and his brother, and he was blasting, I don't know, I think it was like hip hop or rap music, and an officer comes, he sees like in his rear view mirror, and he's like, oh my gosh, a police officer, like immediately turns down the music. It was this immediate reaction where he was taking it so seriously, almost scared. And when I am with my white Asian guy friends in a car and we're blasting music like that, we're never scared when we pass a police officer. Like, that's never something that we would consider. At the same retreat, he was going out to dinner with 3 of his other friends who are also black, and they were denied service into this restaurant, but in a really subtle way. This was in Cocoa Beach, if you know the area. Apparently it's like very white, but the entire restaurant had all white people. And the person at the front, you know, you go up to the person, you ask to be seated. And the person was like, oh, you're not in dress code. I think someone was wearing like a bro take or something, but this is like a beach restaurant. There was a girl in the restaurant in a bikini top. Everyone was wearing shorts, beach clothes, but they're like, you're not in dress code, you can't eat here. And so when they're having this interaction, everyone turns around who is white and is staring at them. And then they say, yeah, you can sit out of the restaurant outside if you want to. And so I'm hearing this story and I'm so angry. We were joking about going back to the restaurant, like everyone wearing suits, being like, are we in dress code now? And I think the really sad part is, you know, they're telling me this story and they're not that angry. It's just like something they're sharing. Like, it's almost normalized for them to deal with stuff like that. And this is an example of the whole like just listening and empathy. So not even because I'm white, but just as a human being. When I'm hearing that, I'm so angry. It's like my friends are trying to eat dinner, and because of the color of their skin, they're not allowed to eat at the restaurant. And this is stuff that's like civil rights era, and it's still happening, and it's awful. So now for the core of the video. I think that most of us, I'd say 99% of Americans, probably more, do not have the Ku Klux Klan mindset where blacks are lesser than whites. And so if we think African American race is equal to Caucasian race, this means that we think they are mentally equal, emotionally equal, as capable, as intelligent, they can achieve as much, they are just as creative. Most of us agree that there is like intrinsic equality between everyone. So now, leading from that, a majority of people who are here, we believe in that intellectual, emotional, creative equality. African Americans in our country make up 12.3% of the population, but there are significantly more blacks in jail, blacks who have been killed via capital punishment. So I realized when I was editing this that I did not go in depth on the prison system. So blacks are incarcerated 5 times more than whites. Currently, there are more blacks in our prisons than there were in slavery in 1850. And in jail, there is forced labor, so this looks so bad. 75% of the people in jail are there for non-violent crimes, and 50% of the people in jail are there for drug use, and then half of those drug offenses are for marijuana. And some of the people for marijuana violations are in jail for life because there's this law where if you're caught 3 times, you're in jail for life. Some activists have argued that slavery is persisting through our criminal justice system, which isn't that far off. Once people get out of jail, it is extremely difficult to get a job. They cannot apply for public housing or student loans, and they have lost their right to vote. And then 95% of the people going to jail did not even have a trial, they just had a plea bargain. Some people who didn't even commit a crime, who are innocent, are encouraged to plead guilty, but they just cannot afford legal help. I'm gonna make an entire video on everything to do with our prison system, not even just with blacks, with Hispanics, children, white men, illegal immigrants, especially Native Americans, drug laws laws, private prisons, all of that is extremely corrupt. In the video description, I linked some other stuff about this. I have a Vlogbrothers video and a ton of information from the NAACP, the ACLU. And if you really get angry at this issue, like how I do, I recommend donating to the Southern Poverty Law Center. 22.5% of the black population has a bachelor's degree, while 32.8% of whites do. Even when we're looking at, you know, award shows for movies and music, compared to the 12.3%, like within that percent, there are less blacks who are receiving awards and who are cast into movies, TV shows. Another example in our criminal justice system is I wrote it down because I'm not good with understanding drugs, but there are two types of cocaine: powder cocaine and crack cocaine. Blacks do crack cocaine, whites do powder cocaine. When it comes to the jail time and the penalty for being caught, crack cocaine gets a much longer sentence. And so this is something where, as a human being, this has nothing to do with me being white, feeling guilty, just like as a human being, when I see that statistic, it seems unequal. It seems wrong. And so that's something that I want to look into more. But it's kind of confusing too, because although they have the same chemical effect on your brain, crack cocaine is absorbed by the blood faster, and so it tends to be more dangerous. And I think that's like the purpose of this. We should just want to understand more, listen, research. I could spend 5 minutes talking about specific examples, reading out stats, but I don't want to make this into a really long video. The point is, we all agree that blacks are equal, but then economically, artistically, with education, it is not equal. And so I think that should be concerning to us. And so just looking at these statistics, it seems like there's something that needs to be done to change this, because we should have equality if everyone is equal. Some things that I support that I think will help us become more equal: currently we have local property tax as what is funding the schools. So blacks tend to be of a lower economic status in general than whites. And so a lot of this inequality seems to be stemming from a history of slavery and oppression. This has nothing to do with whites causing it or being responsible. It has to do with, as a human being, seeing an inequality and wanting to make it an equality, since we believe that all people are equal. That's a value that I think we all can get on board in supporting. A lot of people, if there's one shooting, they pick apart the shooting for why the police officer was actually doing their job, wasn't doing anything wrong. But I think that that is missing the point. It's kind of like with my depression. I've been hurt so much by people's reactions to my depression. So anytime someone says something that isn't even that bad, I interpret it in a really intense way just because I had this built up hurt over the years. I see this too with any relationship, with my parents, even with my parents' parents, because there's been this built up tension, hurt over the years. Anytime there's a tiny thing, you connect it to that hurt and it gets blown up. A lot of the shootings are completely valid, something that we all need to take seriously and that I think a lot of people do. But anytime you think that African Americans are overreacting to a current event, understand that a lot of it has to do with all of this other stuff going on. They're linking the most current event to their daily experience as Americans of inequality. And I think the main thing that needs to happen is we need to just listen, to really seek to understand, make people feel known, to research and fully grasp what everything is connected to. I think all of this just comes down to empathy, understanding. I think that last summer, a huge part of the Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, just everyone being mad at each other, is that someone will say something, or like a group of people like, wow, another black person got shot by the police. I feel like this is awful. I'm so angry. People have this reaction. This group of people is feeling attacked. Like, how dare you? I didn't hurt you. And this happens in relationships all the time. If I tell my friend, hey, you really hurt me, she's gonna get on the defensive because she feels like she's being attacked. And so I think as a group, that's what's happening. Just like how a lot of times I will apologize even if I didn't intentionally do something wrong, but something I said caused them to feel hurt. And so I think it is the same way. Like, people feel really hurt, they feel a little bit angry, and so we can either get on the defensive and feel like we're being attacked, or we can empathize and love and ask questions and come up with solutions to make sure things like this do not happen again. And like I said at the beginning of the video, I don't see a lot of people blaming whites, telling whites to feel so guilty. And that might be how it's coming across, but like genuinely, like believe me, most people do not think that. Like most people are not like, if you are white like I am, most people are not like attacking us, telling us we should feel guilty, awful, we're awful. Like I truly do not believe people think that. So if you're feeling that way, like I'm really, really sorry if I have contributed to that, because I'm very strong, like Black Lives Matter. So if you feel that, then I'm really sorry. And I think a lot of other people would also like apologize if you felt attacked, because I don't think anyone wants to make anyone else feel attacked.
Having a president that doesn't advocate for equality, having a president that advocates for inequality, having a president, the role model for the entire United States, the one person that is the face of our country, be a racist and set the example and say it's okay to be racist. Like I'm white, I'm white privileged, I want to build a wall on our country to keep out a race of people is terrifying. And the fact that that was on the day that he became president, and like what happened that day, like at least for me to see, but also what's happening all over the world, racist acts, hate crimes, this could only be the beginning because of the person that is telling the entire world it's okay to be like this.
He was so upfront about saying things that were racist, and there were a lot of people who supported that. And okay, pausing the video again. So electing Trump, he said a lot of racist things. A lot of people think he is a racist. And even people who voted for him who are not racist, maybe even wouldn't say racist things. A ton of minority groups feel attacked and really hurt by the majority race who voted for him, just because they were able to overlook all of that and value their economic needs basically above the humanity of all these groups. Muslims, Hispanics, gays, blacks, through voting for someone, ignoring all of the discrimination, it has caused unintentional damage to these groups of people. As the majority race, we always get our voice heard, we always get our point across, and so I think we need to stop trying to defend ourselves and just listen and let other people speak and get out all of how they feel. So another example, me and I think like 5 other people, we were getting dinner at Chick-fil-A on the way to this missionary training thing. And one of my friends who's black was talking about, she just can tell that like the workers, security guards are always kind of eyeing her, like expecting her to steal. And she was sharing some other examples of racism that she has encountered growing up. And I was wanting to listen, to ask questions, to understand, because that's something that is wrong. It makes me upset and I want to hear about it because it's my friend who's being affected by it. Everyone else was white. I think there was one Asian, but I could tell they felt uncomfortable with it, and really fast upon her talking about it, they kind of moved the conversation and they didn't want to talk about it, and instead me and her were just talking about it more and I was listening. And so what I noticed is that I think people feel like they're being blamed, like individuals feel like they're being blamed, and because of that, they want to push it away and not listen because it is uncomfortable. And so I think that we all need to move past that, and like I said, where people are hurting and then we feel like, oh, they're blaming us, I don't want to listen to them, I want to push it away. I think that everyone, just in general and everything, not just this, needs to be someone who, before expressing a counterpoint, just wants to listen. Just listen, understand, love. We don't need to make this into an argument. People are hurting. They're hurting so much. They're being negatively affected, and their whole lives they feel like they're not being treated the same as the majority race. And so I think that's something where we should just want to listen and understand and love and think of political, economic measures to help create equality, because they are equal to us. We're all human beings, mentally, emotionally, intellectually, artistically, we're equal. I could spend 2-3 more hours talking about this, but I think the crux of the video is just that we all need to listen, empathize, want to make other people feel understood and known. And I think that right now, blacks in our country are being hurt more than whites in general, and that doesn't mean that white lives don't matter, it just means we need to give extra attention to them. Just like how I have bipolar disorder, and when I was in really bad depression, sometimes my friends would focus on me more because I was hurting a lot. And so it's the same thing. A group of people are being hurt more, and so we need to focus on them, make sure that there is equality in our country for them. This is much bigger than the police shootings. This has to do with their entire lives, their experience in our country. I really, if you've gotten this far in the video and really care about this issue and understanding it more, I recommend a book called All American Boys. It's related to everything I talked about in this video, specifically police shootings and everyone's reaction to it. I'm gonna put the Amazon link below. I read it about a year ago and it was amazing. It really helped me understand this issue more. And that is all of what this comes down to, wanting to make other people feel understood. If someone is hurting emotionally and is saying that they've been hurt for so long, we need to take that seriously and take as many steps as possible to change that and to create more equality in our country.
And 2 years ago, I didn't even understand what white privilege meant. And a year ago, I didn't even understand what it felt like, and still never will to the fullest extent, for people to be afraid of police officers. And I'm happy that I can stand here today, 4 or 5 years later, more educated. And I hope 5 years from now, I'm 10 times more educated, and so are you, and that things are better.
I post new videos on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!
Blood on your hands, I saw when it's blood on this nation's floor, but it's blood on the upper post of your door. If you need to know, I'm looking for your honesty and skeletons. Do away with your ignorance and arrogance. America, land of the immigrants. Check the green card and the pedigree. Bless the Choctaw and the Cherokee that will never see.